On July 4th, 1776, the 13 American colonies declared their independence from the British Empire. In one voice, they declared that all men are created equal, that we possess inalienable rights to life, to liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We celebrate that day as the date of our country's birth. But while it's hard to imagine now, American victory was not guaranteed. The British Empire wasn't going to let the 13 colonies go without a fight, and they controlled the most powerful military the world had ever known. By contrast, the Continental Army, despite the leadership of General George Washington, was barely an army at all. Small bands of farmers and shopkeepers armed themselves with whatever they could find. They lacked supplies, food, weapons, or uniforms. Some of the soldiers didn't even have shoes. But the Continental Army had something the British soldiers did not: a passion for liberty. There were many points during the 8 long years of conflict when our country's future hung in the balance, and one of the most dramatic was right here in Tapan. In the summer of 1780, after 5 years of war, the fortunes of the Continental Army were bleak, and Washington feared that victory was impossible. The general needed a place for his troops to recover, and he chose Tapan for its unique strategic position and the DeWint House as his temporary headquarters. The British held New York City, but here in Tapan the Army had gun positions on both sides of the Hudson, as well as West Point at their back, which Washington described as the most important post in America. The British Army and Navy couldn't strike Tapan without exposing themselves to attack from multiple sides at once. If you could see into the past, you would see the Continental troops' encampments. They walked the same roads you used to get here. They even went to services at the Dutch Reformed Church. But just a few weeks after they left Tapan, refreshed and ready to enter the field again, Washington received explosive news. 3 members of the New York militia had stopped and questioned a man near Tarrytown. They quickly discovered that he was a British officer. The name of this British spy was Major John Andre. Hidden in his boot, they found maps and plans detailing the defenses at West Point, information that would likely have allowed the British to capture the fort, give them control of the Hudson River, and thereby deprive the Americans of a key supply and communication route. This could end the war and the dreams of a new nation forever. The source of the stolen documents was the American commander of West Point, General Benedict Arnold. And even more shocking, the documents included information that would allow the British to capture General George Washington himself. Arnold's betrayal was almost unthinkable, of his country, his friend, and his commanding officer. Had he succeeded in his treacherous plan, the British could well have won the war. But Patriot soldiers on the banks of the Hudson spotted Andre's ship waiting for him offshore. They fired on the British vessel, forcing it to retreat, and Andre fled on foot, which led him into the arms of the patrolmen who uncovered the plot. Washington returned to Tapan and the DeWint House to oversee the trial of the man who had conspired with his former friend. Benedict Arnold escaped to safety behind British lines, but Andre would receive justice. On September 29th, just 9 days after receiving the secret plans for West Point, Major Andre was found guilty of espionage. George Washington signed his death warrant right here, at his desk in the DeWint House. Andre was hanged as a spy on October 2nd, 1780. Washington ordered the shutters of the DeWint House closed. He did not want to see the procession to the gallows. 3 years later, this house would witness a far brighter moment in the Revolutionary War. In 1783, the Americans were victorious. General Washington came back to Tapan to negotiate the terms of the final British retreat from New York with his counterpart, Sir Guy Carleton. They did so over dinner, right here. The next day, General Washington visited Sir Guy aboard his ship, the Perseverance, anchored nearby, and for the first time ever, British sailors saluted the American flag, officially recognizing the United States as a free and independent nation. Despite the important history it witnessed, the DeWint House was nearly lost. In 1932, the house was in rough shape after years of neglect, when Charles Johnson of the Free and Accepted Masons of the state of New York purchased the property and committed to restoring it. The Masons are the oldest fraternity, or brotherhood, in the world, counting George Washington, Paul Revere, Benjamin Franklin, and many other early patriots among their members. Johnson and the New York Freemasons preserved the house as an historic site, dedicated to the memory of all those who fought in the War of Independence on both sides. Today, contributions from Freemasons all over the state, along with donations from visitors like you, provide funds to maintain the house, the grounds, and the museum, all of which are open to visitors as they have been since 1932. As you explore the house today, you will see it as it was when General Washington paced those same floors. As he anxiously awaited news of a British advance, as he considered his friend's betrayal, and when he negotiated the final steps to American independence. When you walk in Washington's footsteps, take a moment to remember the men and women who fought and died for the idea of a country they could only imagine. Your country.